I found myself in an all too familiar situation. I was at risk again of losing my job, or worse, losing myself. I'm neurodiverse with a sensory processing disorder diagnosis. This neurological difference makes it difficult for me to process sensory information. My brain misinterprets the signals or doesn't process them properly, what has been called a traffic jam of information. Because this traffic jam happens whenever sensory information is received, it happens all the time. Lights, sounds, smells, touch, change in environment, change in temperature, change in task or emotion, my physical proximity to people or to objects. It makes it very difficult for me to interact with others and to be in spaces like this for extended periods of time. I'm easily triggered and on edge, which gives me an inability to process my thoughts, an inability at times to speak or to function. This has been a problem at every job I've ever had. The people and the environments overwhelm me. I'm easily triggered, and I've even been reprimanded for some of the things I've done to help myself process. This causes me to question my ability to hold a full-time position, and I've changed jobs frequently. But when I started teaching at a university, I felt I'd found the best fit for me. Not only was I helping people, but I only had to go in 2 days a week. But even that would prove to be too much. On days that I taught, I couldn't do anything else. I would try to go to the grocery store, but the lights and the sounds and the smells and the people walking in different directions would disorient me. I would try to cook dinner, but I would add the wrong ingredients or burn something I was supposed to merely heat because my ability to think had left me. I would try to interact with others, but they would overwhelm me. I often came crashing down hard, physically and emotionally and mentally. After 2 years of teaching part-time at the university, I was promoted to a full-time position. And I was ecstatic until I discovered that this also meant I was teaching the same amount of classes but had to go in 5 days a week as opposed to the 2 days a week I was already struggling to keep up with. But this was everything I wanted, and I knew I would do everything I could to keep it, even if that meant sacrificing more of myself. During my first full-time semester, I completely lost myself. I lost the ability to think and to speak. I was unable to eat because I couldn't process my food well enough to digest it. I was unable to interact with my students because I had a hard time speaking. I couldn't sleep because I was running on adrenaline and completely manic. I became physically ill. I had high fevers and rashes and a leaky gut. I was anxious and depressed. I couldn't seem to process a single coherent thought. One day during that semester, I was rushing and frantic and unable to think, and I was speeding on my way to work and hit a patch of ice and flew backward across 4 lanes of traffic and fell into a 10-foot drop-off ditch. I somehow managed to come out of that without a scratch on me or my car, which is a beast. But I didn't make it to class that day. I was spiraling out of control, and flying across 4 lanes of traffic was a wake-up call. I knew that I had been in the same position at every job I had ever had, and if I wasn't careful, I was going to lose it. I finished out that semester, but I was a shell of myself. I don't know how I managed to do anything but teach, and that's all I managed to do. But it became very clear that in order to save myself, I could no longer keep up at the pace I was going. I knew I had a tough decision to make. I had to decide if I was going to forego my full-time position for the sake of my mental health. I also knew I had to have the discussion with my boss that I had been dreading. And my only hope was that I would be able to teach online. As I sat in my boss's office, my eyes welled up with tears. I was so scared to discuss my processing disorder and to admit that I couldn't handle the teaching load that I was so proud to have. But I explained my processing disorder to her. I explained how it affected my ability to interact with my students, to speak, and to be physically in the classroom. And without hesitation, she told me that I was an excellent teacher and she would do whatever she could to keep me. And she gave me a full-time online schedule. Thank you. I've been teaching online for a little over a year now, and it's completely changed my life. Being able to work in my own environment, being able to control the sensory stimuli, and being able to be clear enough and calm enough to think and to process has given me a sense of peace I've never known. Distraction. I now have the ability to live and to work without the risk of losing myself. Thank you.